Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Get woke, go broke. You'll love to see it. In many cases, we aren't able to put a number to it, you know? And even with this whole Bud Light situation, it's been a little bit difficult because mostly what we've been reporting on has been third-party analysis, expert analysis within the beer industry. There hasn't been a specific number other than, I guess, the loss in market cap. Well, that changes today, friends. Like I've been saying, as we know, Anheuser-Busch is a publicly traded company. What does that mean? That means their financial statements have to be presented to the public, to their shareholders, every single quarter. And boy, oh boy, is it pretty much just as bad as you might expect. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars lost in a single quarter. We're talking total brand collapse. In fact, the Bud Light situation alone has been so bad. Keep in mind that's only one company, one brand under the parent company, Anheuser-Busch. Specifically, the Bud Light backlash has been so bad that it's crushing the parent company as a whole. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, the headline says it all. Get woke, go broke. Anheuser-Busch loses $395 million in second quarter, while Coors sees a $47 million increase over the last year. Here's a little segment from Fox Business's The Big Money Show. Just take a look.
If you take a look at their first quarter earnings, on a global basis, they were up 13% year over year. Yet in this quarter, you saw the U.S. business down 30%. Obviously, we need to find somebody in the U.S. that can turn this business around.
That was former Anheuser-Busch executive Anson Frericks sounding off on the controversy that has dethroned the king of beers. But Brian, this has been a pretty big scandal.
Yeah.
It has hurt them. How much?
Oh, my gosh. We're getting the first earnings report since the company's controversy began. Anheuser-Busch taking a $395 million hit in U.S. sales, down more than 10% compared to the same period last year. Here's why. Bud's not winning back customer goodwill, and competitors are pouncing. Coors seeing profits soar now, $342 million in net income for the second quarter. That's a huge increase from last year. But what's fascinating is customers who left Bud Light don't seem to be looking back. It's not activism. It's not attention-grabbing protest. Nobody's throwing paint on museum art. It's as simple as looking at the next shelf in the beer cooler or the next tap at the bar and simply choosing something else. And
a 10% tank in revenue, and even worse, a 28.2% decrease in core profits. This is what we call a brand falling off a cliff, and everything is playing out pretty much exactly as we expected. We're at, I guess we could call it phase 2 in a way. Obviously, we were predicting that the stock price of Anheuser-Busch wasn't exactly going to look so hot after the second quarter. The first quarter ended right at the start of the actual boycott, and sales were up. In the US specifically, I think they saw a 13% increase in revenue, if I'm not mistaken. They went from a 13% increase to a 10% decrease, and a nearly 30% decrease in actual profits.
Bud Light parent AB InBev reporting a revenue decline of almost 11% in the U.S. this quarter. A core profit also falling over 28%. Sales to retailers and wholesalers in North America plummeting double digits as well.
Considering inflation for a company like this, you should expect revenue to be up, and especially quarter 2, considering there's so many holidays, it's the middle of summer, you'd expect a 10 to 20% increase in revenue following their strong first quarter performance, but instead we saw the exact opposite. And so obviously that's going to have a downstream effect when it comes to their stock value, but even worse, moving forward, it's going to be even harder for them to recover because they're losing shelf space. Bud Light shelf space, bar taps are being relocated for other beers. That comes from the CEO of Molson Coors. The Wall Street Journal noted that as Bud Light continues cratering, the biggest beneficiary of Bud Light's woes is rival company Molson Coors. There are reasons to believe that Bud Light sales might be permanently impaired. Molson Coors chief executive Gavin Hattersley said on a conference call with analysts that retailers are already reallocating space to other brands during shelf resets that take place in the spring, with more resets to come in the fall. The Journal reported in bars and other on-premise channels, the company gained more than 12,000 tap handles in the quarter, he added. Remember the infamous Costco Star of Death? A lot of people were claiming, it's just business as usual, there's nothing to that story. I beg to differ. It's just how the retail business works. If you're not selling, you lose your priority shelf space. They're not going to keep stocking Bud Light in all the most trafficked areas of the store, giving you all the fridge space that you need when your product isn't selling. And it's not just that, they're also losing taps. Here's a video from Keemstar, actually, where he was simply visiting his local beer, and well, they did exactly that.
So, Bud Light is so boycotted that it's being removed.
With Miller!
It's being removed from my local bar. Holy shit. That's crazy.
Looks good. Oh yeah, looks good.
Really, nobody's ordering Bud anymore?
No.
Oh my god.
They replaced the Bud Light handle because, again, it's simply not selling. Then there's the leftist copium approach. Since none of these weirdo boomers want to buy Bud Light anymore, this is how I'ma start selling it. I call it our mystery lager. Even Bud Light supporters are having to resort to cheap, false marketing tactics in order to get people to consume Bud Light unknowingly. A complete joke, but most importantly, a complete utter failure and collapse. You know, the headlines pretty much say it all. Bud Light is running out of time and could lose market share forever. Brand will lose retail shelf space to Miller and Coors if they cannot reverse plunging sales, warns Anheuser-Busch executive, or former Anheuser-Busch executive. The simple fact is, the narrative has gone from getting woke and going broke, Bud Light losing market cap, sales going down, a bad situation for Bud. It's gone from bad to worse to total collapse and possibly never recovering. That's called the get woke, go broke snowball, huh? But it seems to just be kind of like the prevailing sentiment, whether it's a former Anheuser-Busch executive, the Coors Light executive who's trying to bank on it, or even the Bud Light distributors themselves. Bud Light distributors no longer expect sales to recover from TikTok influencer disaster. After 4 months of hiring freezes and layoffs, with some beer truckers getting heckled and harassed even as Bud Light sales have dropped by more than 25%, Anheuser-Busch wholesalers have accepted that they have lost a chunk of their customers for good and need to focus on a new crop of drinkers. Consumers have made a choice, said an executive at a Texas-based beer distributor who did not want to be identified. They have left Bud Light, and that's how it's going to be. I don't envision a big percentage of them coming back. Sales of Anheuser-Busch beer, including Budweiser, Michelob Ultra, and Busch Light, also have been in decline since Bud Light's marketing tie-up with you-know-who. What's more, those lost customers have likely found that Bud Light's competitors, including Coors Light and Miller Lite, are, quote, very similar products. People are either moving to similar products or superior products, like Yuengling, for instance. Or here's another product that's trying to seize the day, so to speak, Heineken. I mean, I don't think Heineken is the greatest beer ever brewed, but it certainly is good, and it's certainly much better than drinking the rat piss that is Bud Light. While I'd personally suggest Yuengling over Heineken, obviously Heineken is a good option. And of course, the executives know that this is their time to shine. There's an open opportunity, an open door, and they want to walk right through it. Heineken boss says companies must stand for your values in wake of Bud Light you-know-who marketing partnership. Dolph Vanderbrink said on Monday that companies have to beware of polarization in society, but also stand for your values. Particularly in the Western world, we do see a lot of polarization in society, he said, when asked about the controversy on CNBC's Squawk Box Europe. And that's affecting all players, all actors in society, also businesses and brands. You have to be thoughtful, you have to be balanced, and at the same time, you need to stand for your values and your principles. And we try to do that to the best of our abilities. So far, I'm proud of how our brand teams across our operating companies are navigating this new world. Even the Heineken CEO is saying, you probably want to stick to your values and importantly have a balanced approach because we live in a polarized world. He's essentially saying you don't want to do what Bud Light did. And that right there, folks, is probably the greatest proof that we've received so far, that this boycott is working, but not only working, it's changing the world. It's changing the corporate world for good. You know, these companies and their allegiances and their marriages with all of these woke entities, let's call them, they got a little too cocky, as if they conquered society's cultural sphere. Not so fast is essentially what we told them. And this Bud Light boycott has sent shockwaves across the corporate world, not just for beer companies, but for companies in general. And now the outlook is to have a balanced approach and to be careful. That should have been the standard all along. It seems like they finally learnt their lesson. You're here to sell beer. You're here to maybe broadcast sports, you know, whatever it is. Not indoctrinate our children with your bogus, left-wing, cultural Marxist garbage. Thank you very much, my friends. This is what winning looks like. That's what I got for you guys, though. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.